Here's part 2 of Weta Workshop.
Is in this manual, and all that I did was
So yeah, that's another reason why I love this, is that it slows everything down and it explains everything. And so when you watch it, you know so much more about what is happening. It expands just the realm and adds so much depth and layers, and oh,
behind me,
it's just fantastic.
And further away than that wall, there's about 10,000 of you guys fighting like crazy and trying to climb up the battlements on
She's
those
spraying on his
ladders.
legs.
Unfortunately, can't remember how many foam latex suits we actually built for the sequences at Helm's Deep.
Probably the most satisfying thing for everybody at the workshop was just watching the racks fill up with prosthetic suits. You know, these gleaming new Iroquois bodies ready to go out to war.
What in
Once they were on the rack,
the
you sort
world?
of felt right. I've
That
created
was
an
a
army.
creepy image.
Because,
They
at
had
any one time on Helm's Deep, I had to be able
flesh
to have
suits
100
hanging up.
120 birds on set. So in order to do that, I needed 300 suits at any one time because I had to keep a rotation going with the suits.
I was forever screaming to Jason, we need more prosthetics, and he was churning them out as fast as he could and getting them over to us. And it was just like some sort of freak show. These sort of great big trucks with roller doors would turn up, and they would just fall to the gunnels of racks of these sort of limbs dangling and waving as the truck stopped.
And we had a big container
Oh my
divided into
God.
sections, all the different
Just
sizes.
the
On
image
set,
of
people
that.
could just come in, literally go 2 mediums, 2 larges, 3 extra larges.
Because out of the 6'2",
They
6'4"
needed it just
guys
constantly.
that we had playing these characters, we would have a few stragglers in around the
is
5 foot to
unbelievable.
5'4" height, and ultimately they were christened the Iroquois.
Those dressing tents were just sheer chaos, trying to get everyone into all
Okay.
their stuff.
These
It looks
poor
like sheer
guys would have to
chaos.
slip these plastic grocery bags onto their hands and their feet. The plastic bags act as the perfect lubricant
Oh, okay.
to
You
allow
get
the
it to pull it
arms
up, yeah.
and the feet to slide
Mhm.
through these long, thin tunnels.
Mhm.
The foam latex was nice and tight, so when they bent their arm, it moved like a real arm.
Wow.
Just to note, a big problem here, of course, is that the night before and the preceding night before that, the prosthetics have been getting soaking wet
Yeah.
with freezing cold water.
Right.
So in the interim, we got to try and dry these things
Oh,
out.
they gotta dry
Every
them out.
morning, we would do whatever we could over those next 5, 6,
Oh my
7 hours to
God.
dry the prosthetics out.
We had drying rooms out there on location. We had the ovens set up out here.
What?
But invariably, those poor actors would be sliding into
Okay.
these semi-dry,
Nasty,
soggy,
slimy.
cold, wet
Oh
prosthetics,
my God.
ready to go on set for another night and another night's filming.
No. It's like damp and just feeling. I just cannot. Do they wear they're the same ones that they wore? Is it their suit? You know what I mean? Or is it just a random suit? That is
And I really
crazy.
think it's a great tribute to that group of men and women, in fact, that came back night after night for month after month to climb back into those wet,
Okay.
smelly
I'm trying to
prosthetics.
tell you. Listen, there's no way in the well. I would have done anything to be a part of it. They probably wouldn't have chosen me to be one of the orcs because I'm so short, but my God, if you have to do it, you have to do it.
So many of the orc prosthetics that you see would get an overall briefing
Yikes.
of what the character was about, and then also looking at the actual actor, then taking their head cast, then working up an actual study on their face.
Oh,
So once the sculpture is finished, it's handed over to Jason Doherty, the workshop supervisor.
so it is
And
based
it's at
on
that
each
point
person. So
when
each
Richard
person
and
gets
I
their
started
own.
talking about
He
exactly
said
how we're
based
gonna
on
do
the
it,
actor's face.
how we should break this makeup down. Anything that deals with doing a makeup, it's very important for the makeup artist or makeup artist, depending on how many are working on a particular makeup,
God, you
to
gotta
A,
do
get
this
along
for
with each other.
everybody?
And
I don't know why I
because
just
you've
thought we
really got to
just
get along with your actor because they have to be
put
able
on
to
a
trust you.
whole
because
suit and a
you're
whole
doing stuff
face mask,
around
but they're like
around their
putting
eyes
pieces.
and around their
I guess because you
mouths
need
and
it to
heads.
move.
It could be dangerous.
Yeah. Maybe the extras don't need all of that, but the major orcs.
Jed Brophy, he's done a lot of movies with Peter. He's probably been in every film Peter's ever made.
Oh, really?
Richard said, "We've got these characters we want you to play, but you'll be in rubber again." And I must admit, there was 5 minutes there where I was going, no,
Oh,
I
he
don't
doesn't
want to
like
do
the rubber.
head part. But if they say that it's a good part and I'll enjoy doing it, then I trust that that's the
My
case.
goodness, the fact that he had to pause for 5 minutes really says a lot about
She took me through
that
and showed
whole,
me
you
the
know,
models that they were
prosthetic
designing for the
process.
characters, and he said
I
that
don't know if I can
you've
do
got
it.
this big scrape on the side of your head, and what we've imagined with it, that the wargs are actually, they'll kill anything. So if you happen to be around them on a bad day, then you're probably likely to get your head torn off. So with most of the warg riders, they do have injuries sustained from actually riding these things as well. And mine obviously didn't like me and scraped the whole side of my head off.
Yeah.
What that meant was I had teeth sticking out the side of the face, which had to be glued onto
Listen,
my
we
own
don't need to
teeth.
see all that.
And it was very tricky to
Ooh.
eat. I was mainly doing liquid lunches most of the time.
Yeah.
Liquid lunches.
Liquid lunches. Wow. Just the detail that they went through.
The first time we get an actor into the makeup, I like to leave them alone in the trailer and let them sit in front of the mirror, you know, so they can play with their new face.
Just seamless. That's why we didn't notice it, you know.
Under that prosthetic, you have to grossly exaggerate. You just want to do that. You have to go.
Yeah.
To make anything happen on this inch and a quarter or inch and a half surface that was out there.
They go for the whiskers, I could go for you.
You are so tall, sir. I didn't know that.
The character has to come through, and if you put a prosthetic on somebody, I think by and large, you limit the acting, and I think sometimes the audience can see it.
Bernard just wasn't comfortable about wearing prosthetics. So what we had to do is we had to basically use an old technique called old age stipple. And the way that the stipple works is that you stretch the skin, and while it's stretched, you stipple this latex on there, dry it with a hairdryer, powder it, and when you relax it, it all of a sudden forms all these wrinkles.
And then Gino would come in with his airbrush and do his little devilish work with veins and liver spots and stuff like that.
We went through about 3 different stages of this makeup. The first one was quite extreme as far as him being really, really wrinkly.
Yeah.
And then the second stage was a bit less. It was a different wig. It was a bit more of a fuller wig.
Fill in the mustache, fill in the rest of the beard, fill in up here, put a little piece in here, and do all that kind of stuff.
Then the final stage was less spots. He was cleaned up a bit, you know, not as many wrinkles.
We shot the scene, and then they played me the scene back on a screen, and I had to try and match my head action.
And then what the digital guys did, or what a digital, is that they did this incredible morph that happened with it. And the first time I saw it, I was blown away by it. Right before my eyes, I saw our makeup, and it just slowly just disintegrated, and it just became Bernard Hill. One of the new characters that we did for film too was Brad Dourif, who plays Wormtail.
Just magical.
So prosthetic-wise, we put a nose on him and gave him a wart.
Every morning you get up.
I like how he said he just refused to do the prosthetic because it was going to, you know, affect his acting.
And then we gave him a contact lens. So his right eye, which is really, really pale, like it's kind of a dead eye where it's lost all its pigment. And then what I did with the airbrush is I would go in with the airbrush and just very subtly paint in all these veins and stuff under his skin, just to make him look like he doesn't like the daylight at all, so he stays inside, so he's got a very pale and kind of sickly looking skin.
Yeah.
And in his wig, he had a couple of bald spots in the back here, where he's got this eczema. He's almost like Gollum. He's always scratching it, itching it.
The thing about Brad that I always felt incredibly guilty
Can't wait till they tell us
was
about
the fact that he
Gollum.
had to shave his eyebrows off.
The last time I went, it's been like over a year since
You didn't
I
have
went.
eyebrows?
And,
Wait.
You know, my girlfriend saw me off, and away I went, flew down
Wait,
there.
is
And
that-
all of a sudden,
Are
I
you
said,
the actor?
"Oh my God, I'm gonna have to shave my eyebrows."
Are you Wormtail?
I called her up and I said,
Oh.
"Darling, we kind of forgot about the eyebrow."
He said, "Darling."
Big silence.
Darling.
I hate that.
The thing with working with actors like this, especially on a shoot like this, where
That's
it's gone
funny.
on for so long, and you're stuck in a trailer.
Yes, you had to
starting their makeup
cut off
at
your eyebrows.
4:35
Wow.
o'clock in the morning. You get to know these people pretty well, so you know a lot of intimate.
There's so much
secrets.
to notice now.
John
you
is
know?
he's missing the end of
When
his
I
middle
rewatch.
finger.
I was playing with a van on my farm, and we needed to do an engine swap. And anyway, the long and short of it was the short of it. You'll pardon the expression.
So I took a cast of John's middle finger, and I took a cast of his other finger, which was full on this side, and then I just duplicated it, and I made a gelatin piece that fit over his little stump.
Oh, wow.
And put this on, blended it off, and colored it, and I painted the fingernail and everything.
Well, having got the artificial fingertip on, we just had to sort of play it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
So very carefully, we took the razor, we cut into the finger.
But the trick of it was, it looked really weird, is that when John got the finger and bent it back like this, the whole split just opened up. It just looked horrible.
And we put a tiny little bit of blood right in the middle of it.
I think it was John said, "Oh, we got to get Pete. Let's go get Pete." So we went to set.
And carefully, I went along to Peter and I said, "Boss, I've had an accident. Look what happened." He looked at the thing, and it was just the slightest cut. His eye. And as I just pushed it back.
And he bends it back like that, and it splits open, and all this blood oozes out.
More and more and more. And Peter went absolutely white.
We should get the medic. We should get the medic.
You know, he was really trying to hold it down as I sort of pulled it right back.
He didn't know?
I have to tell this.
He didn't know that he had the prosthetic finger? That is crazy.
And everybody, John and Dom and I, who were the only ones who knew about it, started cracking up.
So you gotta get the medic, get the medic. I can totally see Peter doing
going,
it.
"Oh." He's looking at me and says, "You got me."
Yeah. His cute laugh. That was good. I enjoyed that. I love him. Peter.
If you as a designer don't believe in your design and don't see it beyond the context of the film, but as a real creature in a real world, then how can you expect the audience to believe it?
Right.
So something that we did a great deal was to really delve into our creatures and imagine them in the wider context of Middle Earth beyond what you'll ever see in the film.
Well, there are new creatures we see in the Two Towers.
Of course,
the Fell Beast, which the Nazgul ride.
It's one of those things which is a throwaway mention in the book, and great to see realised.
What?
You know?
John Howard done these sketches that were based on creatures he had done for the books.
Oh.
And Peter'd always liked the feel of these creatures, but he asked for a few changes.
I think I've gone quite wide of Tolkien's original concept for these fell beasts. They're less bird-like and more snake-like than his original idea.
Okay.
They went very quickly from these illustrations,
snake-like,
which were done prior to the film, through a sculpting process.
It was basically taking John Howard's paintings that he had done of them and then trying to interpret how they would work physically.
John loves putting elbow spikes on his wings for his creatures. He loves it.
Right. Yeah, Ben has a background in zoology, that's right.
Wrong, because they don't exist.
Right. Ben hassled me to no end about the elbow spine that the fell beasts have. He kept on going on about that. That wouldn't work.
And the wings don't fold up properly, and they can't fly properly, and we'd have these, you know, go, you can't do that. And he'd go, it's just a wing, eh?
I said, shut up, Ben, it looks cool. So leave me alone. You know, this isn't a zoo, this isn't National Geographic, this is Lord of the Rings.
You know, there it is. It's in a nutshell, really.
I think the wargs are a really fantastic design. They were led and, nailed by Warren Mahi.
Pete liked some earlier designs that I'd
It's
done.
so funny to hear them say the wargs are designs because they look like real animals.
Something that looks like a sort of a cross between a pit bull and a hyena.
And so I had the opportunity to start creating the wargs.
You know, Warren's done some beautiful drawings of the way they look. But underneath that, he's looked at dog skeletons and all of this stuff. He has tried to build that creature from the inside out.
Look at this.
The digital department ended up stretching the front limbs so that the gait worked better and his run cycle worked better.
Something the size of a horse carrying a man, that seems fairly feasible. But then you've got to go, well, hold it, where do we put the saddle? Because carnivores work differently from herbivores, and the fact that part of their gait comes from the flex of their spine, whereas a horse's spine stays straight. So you can put a saddle on it and someone sits there quite happily. It's no worries. But if you start getting a dog or a cat running around, suddenly you've got this massive vertical travel. So that's why the saddle comes forward up onto the shoulders. A lot of it's really logical, and I think there's nothing clever about it.
I thought that was pretty clever. To even consider that. It's like, I guess they have to follow their thought all the way through in order to get it to execute seamlessly the way that they did.
Poke at with your spear and then they'd disappear again. But in the Two Towers, we were faced with the concept that we had two characters, basically Gollum and Treebeard, who were not monsters, and they weren't
cameos. They were actually characters that had to sustain huge amounts of screen time.
Yeah, I'm going to go into them.
For the terrible encounter years.
Treebeard was a particular challenge because he's a walking, talking tree, which is something very difficult to
You
design.
think?
I mean, how do you design something like that without looking really goofy?
I
Yeah,
think
it didn't
for
look
a very
goofy
good
at all.
reason, not many of the Tolkien illustrators in years gone by have actually attempted to do Treebeard. And it was something that I was worried about, very worried.
They pulled that
Is
off
it a
well.
giant man, vaguely tree-shaped? Is it a tree that's man-shaped? In previous illustrations I've done, I've always decided to hide great portions of them because they're just too difficult to draw.
It was a challenge, but it was one that I personally relished because I always had a very clear idea in my mind when reading the books of what Treebeard might look like. My first drawing pretty much just drew how I'd always imagined him looking, and Peter reacted extremely well to it.
Daniel, who's a bit of a Tolkien freak, had been thinking about Treebeard for years. He must have just been waiting for this moment to put him down.
Thinking
Because
about Treebeard
literally
for
Daniel's
years.
drawing on that very first day of design was the best Treebeard I've ever seen. It was way better than anything I could imagine.
Okay.
So that spun us off immediately on a very positive design direction because Treebeard had to be grandfatherly and ancient and benevolent, but at the same time look a little scary sometimes.
He did endless series of sculptures of Treebeard.
It was decided early on that we would make
sculptures,
a full-size puppet of Treebeard, so it needed to be really, really rich and layered and detailed. So being able to sculpt it at full size was fantastic.
There were some techniques that they used in order to get some of the great detail on Treebeard in the facial area. One of them was to go out and take a mould of a real tree. We brought the bark moulds back in, and then we poured melted plasticine onto those moulds.
Those were then laid out on boards, and when Daniel Falconer and Sean Bolton began sculpting Treebeard's head, and this is a sculpture about 4.5 to 5 foot tall, we were able to use those little bark patches and very, very carefully butt them in and join them in and fuse them together to form the structure that you see in Treebeard's face.
You'd think that they would have spent hours putting that sculptural detail into the bark, but there it is, the secret's revealed. It's actually done through taking moulds off the real existing tree.
Look at this coming
Dominic
to
Taylor
life.
was responsible for building the working armature underneath the Treebeard puppet.
The space frame that we'd need to build this massive 14-foot tall animatronic puppet.
It's an animatronic
a couple
puppet?
of the other guys in the workshop, the process of actually
I just assumed it would be digital.
and then very carefully laminate it onto the tree.
Oh my
and building up the
God.
surface of Treebeard to look like some really gnarled old tree.
There was a tree that donated its aerial roots to
Please tell me they didn't get rid of this. Did they have to strike this too?
Weaved smaller roots and vines and twigs into, and mosses. And he also had a little unique...
Gino Acevedo, meanwhile, was painting up the eyes.
This is Treebeard's eyeball. Eyeballs.
For the most part, the articulation was driven by huge pneumatic pistons that would create the broad movement in the head, the body, the legs. We very cleverly thought...
I've just fallen in love with everyone in this project who is creating Treebeard. This is amazing.
Unfortunately, he was bigger than our door at the Weta Workshop.
Oh, no.
So we had to make a removable top branch, and it was such a sad sight seeing Treebeard without his top knot on.
Right.
It allowed him to be rolled
He was
down the
too
road
big
to
in
the
the door.
studio and things like that.
And I was always under the assumption
my God.
that the main person that I would be interacting with.
I thought I wanted to see Gollum, but I really wanted to see Treebeard just then. That was amazing.
Remote control. It's about this big, like a big remote
Look at
control
this.
card.
It's a remote control.
Press a few buttons, and the eyes open. And then these big, beautiful brown eyes. So I'm now thinking that this is more of a complex kind of character.
This is just too good. I just cannot.
We realized that there was.
It really just changes the whole experience of watching The Lord of the Rings.
Really slow, older person would be there, and these two young hobbits are, try to get a hook on this guy. And it took about 5 people to move it, one on each arm, and it had people on the legs and someone who kind of moved it from side to side and stuff.
They got on all blue.
It was really amazing to see something that I had imagined 3-4 years earlier and started doodling on a piece of paper been taken all the way through this process to this
makes me
huge
so
and
happy. That was
incredibly
so good.
personality-filled puppet, topped only by finally seeing them
Oh,
animated
this
in
is
the final
so
film.
good. So what did they do for the walking, you know? I wonder what they did for the walking.
One of the great advantages of the Weta Workshop is just having all these different opportunities. I mean, there's the opportunities there for a lot of people to try and learn and do different things.
So everybody got involved with all the processes.
The
Ooh,
impetus
that was
to
so
keep
good.
pushing yourself and to look at what they're doing and to learn from their drawing styles and from the research they're doing as well. It's fantastic.
Really felt like they were giving more than their hard work and their time. They were like giving blood, really working till their fingers were sore.
Yeah.
We had two brave souls who worked for like, two
The
or 3
chainmail
years
people, yeah.
on doing nothing but putting links
That
together.
is just a lot
They'd
to
actually
ask.
worn the fingerprints off their fingers, the finger and
Oh,
thumb, because they were
yeah.
just spent 3 years
Right.
rubbing them against this plastic, putting these links
Right.
together, and they had no more fingerprints left.
How could you?
And now they can have a successful life in crime.
Oh
So there's some good comes out of it after all.
my God.
People keep saying to me, why bother? Why did you go to so much trouble? We didn't put the detail in for detail's sake. We put it there because it rationalizes out a theoretical culture.
So quite often, we
Yeah,
had
why
to go all the
bother?
way
And I
down
love their
these design
response.
roads to the bitter end, farther
It
than
really does
your novel
matter.
inclination would take you, in order to provide something complete that could be interpreted on the screen.
Yeah.
I guess it's like good cooking, where if something's seasoned well, you'd know if it wasn't there, but you don't know it's there because it tastes good.
That's
Right.
really
Oh,
what
that was
drove
good.
myself and the people
What a
around
way to
me
put it.
to try and deliver a rich and detailed world that would tip its hat significantly to Tolkien's visionary writings.
Oh, that was so good. Oh, I loved every minute of that. I keep saying that, I know. Okay, let the other one load. I am still reeling from the segment on Treebeard. I just wasn't expecting that. Now, I wasn't expecting it to be so blown away by it, but it was like Treebeard was an animatronic, and then they actually showed the process of the creation of Treebeard, and it was just really astounding to me to see. Like I wasn't, because I wasn't expecting it. And I loved every minute of it. They took a mold of an actual tree that was just right outside of the Weta Workshop, and they took those pieces and pieced together the face of Treebeard, and they I think they said the face itself was maybe like 4.5 feet or something, and then it became like this 14-foot like animatronic model that was like functioning, and it was literally working to a point to where it was able to hold Merry and Pippin. I forget the actors' actual names, but Merry and Pippin, and then it had people behind it and helping to move it and it just looks so seamless on screen. It looks so good. I thought it was digital. I mean, it didn't even occur to me that they actually took the time to create this huge model. Like, just blew me away. It just, everything about this is just so fascinating. What they actually went through in order to put the Lord of the Rings and now the Two Towers onto screen. It's just unbelievable. And then the illustrations, they keep putting these illustrations there, and the illustrations are just, they're so detailed and they're so good that oftentimes they will cut, you know this because you've seen this before, but oftentimes they will cut from the illustration directly to what was actually produced out of that illustration, and it looks exactly like the illustration, right? From anything, from the illustration of the orcs, and you cut from that scene to the actual orc itself, and it looks exactly like the illustration. And then of course the elves and their elegant wardrobes and their just all in their helmets and everything, and you cut to the actual scene, the actual real life individual wearing the exact same thing that was in the illustration, and looks exactly like it. Just mind-blowing. And the appendices, the behind the scenes, what it does is it reveals all of the love right? All of the love and all of the attention to detail that they gave to us that they didn't have to do. And I really enjoyed what he said at the end, where he said that it's like a well-seasoned food. You'll notice it if it's not there, but you don't notice it is there because it just tastes good. And that's what happened. They put all of these details, I mean, even to the point to where they mentioned the emblem that they put on the inside of the armor for Theoden, that we're never going to be able to see. And it made Theoden, he said something like he felt like it made him feel like a king or something, you know. But I love that. I mean, like, they're putting details on things that just really, truly, they could have gotten away with not doing. But the fact that they chose to do it just speaks volumes about just the passion for this project, the passion of everyone. I didn't even realize just the amount of suffering that a lot of these people did in order to get the Lord of the Rings on screen, because a lot of the actors, they had to suffer sitting there putting on these prosthetics, right? And they did it. They endured it for hours and hours and hours. Like when they talked about what they went through with the orcs, where the prosthetics would become wet and, you know, like just smelly over how many months, right? And it's like you have to put it back on. Oh my God. And it was good when they cut to the clip of them drying them off, you know, trying their best like to get some of the moisture out of them. Oh my goodness, I just cannot. I just loved it. I loved every minute of it. I loved it that they included the segment again about the chainmail, because I just find that to be particularly fascinating as well, to just sit there and put together these chainmail. I mean, and that's all they did. I would have had to have something else to do, but they did this for years, to the point to where they actually rubbed off their fingerprints. And I love that they included that in there. I also loved the little joke that Gimli, Jonathan Rhys, I'm pretty sure that's his name. He the joke that he played on Mr. Peter Jackson, where you know, his finger, he used a prosthetic to make it look like he actually injured himself very badly. And they cut to Peter doing his little chuckle. I didn't see much of him in this one, but yeah, I do appreciate that. I appreciate them showing us like a little bit of their personalities, their little character, their little quirks. You know, it's just too good. Yeah, so I'm gonna watch the next video at a later date, maybe sometime later today. Who knows? But you know, I'm just really enjoying myself, and I'm glad that you guys are, you know, still hanging in there with me. We're dwindling down. You know, I'm just gonna be like have this little Lord of the Rings niche on my channel now, just because I don't want to leave Middle Earth, and you guys are giving me so many good suggestions to keep this going week after week after week. So, you know, I'm just gonna keep reacting to the things that you guys suggest. Once I finish the Two Towers, I'm gonna move on to Return of the King, and then of course we'll do the Hobbit behind the scenes, appendices, and all that. And then after that, you know, it's like all of these different. You guys have music suggestions for me. I have to read the books and do my reviews, and you guys also have like fan features that you want me to see, and you know, things like that. So we're just gonna keep this going, keep this alive for as long as we can. I'm gonna stay in Middle Earth for at least the next year, maybe two. We shall see. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, until next time, let's flow.